Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. One thing that was happening to me a lot when I was a kid and I was starting my chess journey, it is that I was able to find really quickly and really precisely the tactical puzzles. But then when I was in a real game, I was not able to spot the combinations, not for me and not for my opponent. So in today's video, I will show you a method and I will speak about the important things when we study or when we train tactics, so we are able to transfer that knowledge and transfer that skill into our actual games. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let's jump right into the examples. Okay, so I want to speak about two different topics that are very important for me, are the most important topics that you should focus when you are practicing tactics. And it's the forcing moves. This is the main thing, and the tactical motifs. So first of all, what are the forcing moves? The forcing moves are basically moves that they force your opponent to do something. They give a limited amount of options to your opponent. So let's go with an example. If we make a random move in this position, let's say rook e3, just the first random move that came into my mind, our opponent can do basically anything. He can do king here, he can do queen here, he can do bishop here, he can do rook here, he can do any move that he wants. Actually, bishop here would be a really bad move, but just an example. Black has unlimited amount of options. Meanwhile, a forcing move, it's a move that gives a limited amount of options to your opponent. For example, the most classic and the most strong and the most important type of forcing moves are the checks. Because when you deliver a check to your opponent, for example, 97, your opponent has to do something about it. He needs to get out of this check somehow. This is a rule in chess. So really the checks are the most definitive type of forcing move. So when there is a check, your opponent needs to do something about it. So in this position, after 97, black basically has no option but to take. Otherwise, it's a fork um, with the king and the queen. So this is very important to understand, and this is very important to know in chess. Always, in every position, the first moves that we should consider are the forcing moves. Why? Because the forcing moves usually they have the potential of winning the game right away. If you make a move and against this move your opponent has only one option, there is good chances that it's not a good option. Meanwhile, if you make a non-forcing move like rook e3 and your opponent has uh, 30 options, there is high chances that your opponent has a good move. So the first advice that I really want you to keep is that you always need to look first for the checks. This is the first thing that you should do in every position. I'm not telling you, and I really don't want you to be confused, I'm not telling you that you should make the checks. No. You should consider the checks, not only for yourself, but also if you are going to make, let's say, a random move like rook e3 again, you should always look up for the checks that your opponent can give you first. For example, actually in this position, this move would be really good because after king takes, another check, and now suddenly it's made. So you can see that it's not only important to look for your own checks, but also look always for your opponent's checks. And this is something that, listen to me, this is important because this has to be, you have no other option. This has to be the first step of any thinking process when you are looking for a move. This has to be your first step. If this is not your first step, you will never be able to become a good chess player. This has to be automatic for you. And if you practice enough, at some moment it will be automatic. So other type of forcing moves are the captures. When you take a piece, in a lot of situations your opponent has to take back the piece. So we will discuss about the other types of forcing move later. But first I wanted to show you an example where the checks basically decide the game. So in this position, we have to look always first for the check. So 97, sorry, here, 97, check. Black is basically forced to take the knight. Bishop takes knight. And now we have moves like queen takes queen, but we have to look for the checks. So in this position, we only have one logical check, which is queen takes rook. And actually, this will end in a checkmate because black has only one move, bishop takes queen, and now rook e8, checkmate. So as you can see, when you are giving checks, your opponent has not many options. So there is good chances that you can find a winning sequence. Okay, another very important thing that I want to speak about are the tactical motifs. And I will use this example and I will try to speak about the tactical motifs in every single position that we will be showing. Because for me, the tactical motifs open my eyes like nothing else have ever done in chess. I was very good at finding combinations in the books of puzzles, on internet puzzles, because I knew there was something. I knew there is a combination. So there is big letters that they tell you white to move and win, or black to move and win. So you know you have to look for a combination. But then when you are on an actual game, there is no one, there is nothing telling you white to move and win. Or is it? This is something that I was thinking about a lot when I was a young chess player, and suddenly I discovered the tactical motifs. The tactical motifs are the reasons why a combination occurs. They are big signals that are telling you there is a combination in this position. So if you just solve the exercise by applying the forcing moves, you will be able to solve a lot of exercises. But in an actual game, you will not have the sign of alarm that there is a combination. And you will miss a lot of combinations, not only for yourself, but also for your opponent. So the tactical motifs are the signs. And I will tell you, for example, what is the tactical motif in this position. Just for you to know, there is a big list of tactical motifs like undefended pieces, pinned pieces, unsafe king, overloaded pieces, which is when a piece has many functions, a piece is doing many things at the same time, and passed pawn, especially a very advanced passed pawn, and the list goes on and on and on. But there is one very important type of tactical motif that not a lot of players know, which is a square where if one of your pieces arrive to that square, it will be checkmate. This is a very important tactical motif. And in this position, we have it very clear. We have the e8 square. If our rook goes to that square, it's a checkmate. So it's important to notice this when you are solving the puzzles, because then in the games, it will give you like an alert, and you will know, you will feel, you will smell when there is a combination. So in this position, 97, bishop takes, we sacrifice the queen, bishop takes, and finally the rook delivers the checkmate. So we are applying two things. We are applying the forcing moves, the checks, and we are applying the tactical motif of critical square. We can call it critical checkmate square. So this is a critical checkmate square. If one of our pieces get to that square, it's checkmate. I mean, not if one of our pieces. If our rook gets to that square, it's checkmate. So we go for it. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go to the second position. Okay. So here we are with the white pieces. And once again, we have the same tactical motif and actually the same piece in the same square. If our rook gets to this square, it's checkmate. So then this can open up our mind, and this can help us to find the move queen g7, which it turns to be also a check. Black is forced to take, and now rook e8. Black needs to protect with the bishop, no other option, and rook takes bishop, checkmate. So very similar exercise. We are applying the same tactical motif, and we are also applying the checks. Okay. Now let's go to this position. In this position, I want to talk to you about the second type of forcing move, because for the moment we only spoke about the checks. But there is other type of forcing move which is extremely important, which is the captures. When you take one of your opponent pieces, usually your opponent is forced to take back because otherwise he will end up with less material. So take a look at this position. It seems that it seems that white's position is quite solid because everything seems well protected. But something that we should learn is that often the tactical motifs are not in the present position, but they appear after a forcing move. So take a look at the move bishop takes knight, which is a forcing move because now white is forced to take back the bishop. You see, if we make the move bishop takes e2, white has two moves. Either can take with the rook or either can take with the queen. Meanwhile, if we make a random move, a random non-forcing move, let's say knight f8, how many options does white has? Knight here, I can play bishop here, I can play rook here, I can play pawn here. White has big number of options. Actually, bishop takes d6 looks a very interesting move. So white has a huge amount of options because this is not a forcing move. So these type of moves we have to do them sometimes because our forcing moves don't work, but they are unlikely to win the game right away. So most of the times when we are looking for a tactic, we should look for checks, and after checks, we should look for the captures. So we capture the knight. And now how many options white has? Only two. So in this example, white takes with the rook. And now there is two new tactical motifs in this position. First, the first tactical motif actually it was also available in the previous position. We have a critical checkmate square on b2. If our queen gets to the b2 square, it will be checkmate. And also we have an undefended piece. The rook on g1, it's now undefended. So we should find a way for our queen to attack both of these squares, the rook and the checkmate on b2. And here we can do it by means of a tactical forcing sequence. Rook takes knight. Now, after eliminating this knight, we are giving our queen the b6 square. And after queen takes, queen b6, attacking checkmate, and attacking the rook on g1. Obviously, white needs to protect the checkmate. There is no question on that. We will simply grab this rook, and we will end up with an extra knight and a completely winning position. So what is the element of this sequence? The element of this sequence is the capture, the take as a forcing move. We capture the knight, and white is basically forced to take back. So he does it with the queen. If he does it with the pawn, I believe it's the same. After we exchange, we play queen b6, threatening mate, threatening the rook, and it's game over for white. So basically the same thing. It's very important. And also in this example, I can already start speaking about the third type of forcing move, which is the threat. We have the checks, we have the captures, and we have the threats, especially the big threats. Sometimes I prefer to teach to my students like threatening something like a pawn really doesn't count as a forcing move because too often your opponent can just ignore. But let's say threats of mate or big material threats, like you're threatening a rook, you're threatening a queen, you're threatening a knight or a bishop. Threatening of a pawn, we can consider like a strategical thing more than a tactical thing because too often your opponent can sacrifice a pawn. He can just ignore the threat of the pawn. But when you are threatening a piece or more, it's also a forcing move. For example, I am not saying that your opponent has always to react about the threat of the piece, but it can be considered an important threat. So in this position, for example, after queen d5, queen b6, this is a double threat, which is a tactical theme. And it's a move that we need to learn how to do in chess because too often it's what decides the game. We are threatening mate and we are threatening the rook. So queen b6, it's also a forcing move. So we have checks, we have captures, and we have threats. Let's move on. Okay, so let's take a look at this position. This is a position where we have one check here, we have another check with the knight here, and we have a check here, which really doesn't make that much of a sense. We can take the queen. We have many forcing moves. This is what we should start looking for. But one very important tactical motif that we have in this position, and I want to use this example to show you this motif, is the back rank weakness. When your opponent's king doesn't have escape up, it means the back rank is weak. So here it's a great example of this. Your rook can come to the back rank, and now the knight can protect. But now basically this king, it's one check away of being checkmated. So it could be potential check with the queen right here. And this is what can give us the idea. We could sacrifice the rook on f8, and then if our queen could magically go to d8, it would be checkmate. So we have a very clever move, knight h6, which is, of course, a forcing move, a check. I think all the examples, all the positions that we will see today are forcing moves, checks, captures, and threats. And if black moves the king, it's just checkmate in one move. So black needs to take the knight, and now we have the magical square. We sacrifice the rook, and our queen gives the final check. So let's move on. Okay, this is a very famous position. And in this position, I want to talk about tactical theme, which is extremely important. And it's the piece with a lack of mobility and also undefended piece. So there is a piece in black's position that has serious problems, but it's not so easy to notice. And it's the black's queen. The black's queen is really the tactical motif in this position. Because the black's queen, as we can see, only has 2 squares to go. It's kind of trapped, but also the black's queen, it's unprotected. So this is a game by my favorite player of all time, Bobby Fischer, against Samuel Rechevsky, another great American player. And nowadays, this is a very known trap in the accelerated dragon Sicilian. But I will explain you the tactical reasons of this combination. The queen is undefended and it's almost trapped. So here, by means of a check, Fischer takes advantage of this. Bishop takes f7 check. This enables the e6 square for the knight. So for example, if black takes with the rook, knight e6, brilliant move. Absolutely fantastic. And the queen is trapped. The bishop is guarding b6. The knight, it's attacking the queen, guarding the c7 square. And also the knight cannot be taken with the pawn because the queen is unprotected. So notice that it's very important that the queen is unprotected. If the queen was protected, black could just grab this knight. But the problem is that the queen is not only trapped, but also unprotected. So this is a tactical motif. This is something that when you see it, you should open your eyes and you should say, there could be a tactical combination here. So the important thing is that when you practice tactics and when you solve exercise, you are always looking for these tactical motifs before you solve the exercise, not after. You should look for the tactical motifs before you solve the exercise. Sometimes you will not be able to find them, but it's okay. Then you can solve the exercise, and afterwards you come back and you look for the tactical motif after you solve the exercise. I really encourage you that if you cannot solve or you cannot find the tactical motif of an exercise, you go to a higher ranked friend that you have or a chess teacher that you have, and you ask him. And you can even create a database with all the positions where you didn't understand the tactical motif, at first because it's very important. This will really increase your tactical awareness. Bishop f7. So Reshevsky decides to take with the king because with the king he's protecting the e6 square. But who cares? Fischer goes for 96 anyway. And now you cannot take with the pawn because the queen hangs. So you have to take with the king. Otherwise, you're just losing the queen and the game basically. So he takes with the king, and now queen d5, and now g4, and obviously this is lost because the black king is completely in the middle of the board without any help of his pieces. So the game goes like this, like this, like this, and basically checkmate. Okay, the game goes on a bit more, but doesn't make that much of sense. This is just, it's lost. Actually, if we count the material, white is not even down in material. And look at the black's king. The game is completely over. So remember, trapped pieces and undefended pieces, very important to notice. Let's go to another position. Yes, so this is a position that I really, really, really like. In this position, black is threatening the move queen g4, which could be uh, could be checkmate for black. Actually, it is a checkmate for black. Let's imagine white makes a non-forcing move, queen f7. I mean, it's kind of forcing because you're threatening mate, but it's not the biggest type of forcing move, which are the checks. So now we are threatening checkmate with queen h7. Black is absolutely forced to prevent the checkmate. Not really. Actually, black can go with his own attack and play queen g4, and we are done after this because we have to take the queen. After pawn takes, we have to move the king up. There is no other move. And for example, after g5, we have to move the king up. And now rook takes h2. It's just checkmate. So here I want you to see that the only move that is 100% forced are the checks. This is why the checks, they should be always first in our search list. The first thing that we should look for, the checks. So in this position, instead of going relatively slow with queen f7, we can play queen takes rook. And the tactical motif that we are seeing here is black's king, it's trapped. Because as we can see, the black's king has nowhere to go. So this is always an indicator that we have chances for a quick attack. And actually, after queen takes rook, he needs to take. Our other rook enters the game. And now our rooks are crossing the king. The bishop needs to cover. And now our last piece is joining the attack. Bishop c4 check. Joins the attack. The king needs to move. And we just take the bishop. And it's now a checkmate. What is the difference between this attack and this attack? The difference is that the attack that we just saw, it's always with checks. Check, 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 checkmate. So that's why it's always important to look first for the checks. And also we should look for the checks of our opponent. Imagine we see queen f7. We can get excited very easily because we can say, oh my god, this move is so good. I'm threatening mate. I will destroy my opponent. Yes, but he will destroy you first, sacrificing his queen, and he's going for the checks. He's going for the checks, and he delivers checkmate first. So be careful with this. Let's go to another example. Okay, let's take a look at this position. This is definitely one of the most challenging positions that we will see today. And really, if you want to make a big effort, I encourage you to pause the video and to try to find the correct answer for white. Here it's white to move. If you manage to find the correct answer, leave it in the comments down below. Please don't comment the correct answer. Just say I did it in the comments, and I will know that you found the right answer. But it's a really challenging one. So let's speak about the tactical motifs that we have here. First of all, as we said in other position, the back rank. You can see that this king has no way to escape. So only he can only move in one rank, only in the last rank. So this is a problem because if we manage to deliver an effective check here, we will just win the game. So here, the problem is that this move comes to our mind, right? Uh, because if black takes our queen, we can enter with the rook, and voila! It seems like we already won the game. Black needs to protect, and we just take the queen. It's very important in chess to always pay attention to your opponent's resources. After queen e8, black is not forced to take the queen. Black can go with the move queen f8. So we can say that the black's queen has a very important function because the black's queen needs to protect the f8 square. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. Another piece that obviously has a very important function is the a8 rook. So these two pieces, they have very important function. And there is a tactical motif here which is extremely hidden in the position. It's extremely hidden, which is the b7 pawn, it's pinned. What does it mean, the b7 pawn, it's pinned? It means that this pawn, it cannot move because the rook will drop. So this pawn cannot move. This queen cannot move because it needs to guard the f8 square, and this rook cannot move. So that means that there is one square, one specific square in the position that it's actually unprotected. It looks like the most protected square in the position, but it's actually an unprotected square. And this is really a surprising example. And it's the a6 pawn. Because all the pieces that are protecting the a6 pawn, they have important task. So this queen is overloaded because this queen is protecting the checkmate, but also protecting the a6 pawn. This is an overloaded piece because it has two important functions. This rook is overloaded because the rook is protecting the a6 pawn, but also protecting the checkmate. So we have two overloaded pieces. And then we have the pin piece. The pawn cannot move because it's pinned. So there you go. I know you already found the move. I hope so. Rook takes a6, sacrificing the rook, and black just cannot take. It's an amazing move. Attacks the queen, attacks the rook, so it's a very forcing move because we are making big threats against black's position. And if black takes with the queen, now we sacrifice the queen, and there is no way to prevent the checkmate because black needed the queen here. If black takes with the rook, it's just checkmate on e8. And if black takes with the pawn, we just take this rook, and after black protects, we have this brilliant move, rook e8, and it's game over because black needs to take, and it will just be checkmate. So what a move, what a brilliancy. Rook takes a6. I love this example so much. I think it's a fantastic move. So what are the tactical motifs here? The tactical motifs: queen overloaded, rook overloaded, pawn pin, and the back rank. The king has the back rank weak. These are the tactical motifs. And of course, the rook unprotected. Also important to mention that the rook on a8 has no protection of any piece. And this we have to count it as a tactical motif. So we can take advantage of all of that with the move rook takes a6, which is a forcing move. I repeat, we will be showing only forcing moves. Attacks the rook, attacks the queen. It's a really forcing, really brilliant, and really fantastic move. I really hope you managed to find this solution. But leave in the comments down below, either if you find it or if you didn't find it. Trying, it's also very important in chess. Not only finding the right solution. The effort that you make trying to find it, it's already very valuable. Okay, so moving on. Okay, let's take a look at this position. This is a far, far, far simpler example. We have a tactical motif here, which is the king has nowhere to go. This square is taken, this square is taken, this square is taken. So when we have a king like this, we should only look to give a check. This is all we should look for. And once again, I encourage you to try to do it in a fast way. If you do it in a slow way, like rook here, then your opponent can start giving you checks. And your opponent can start considering the different checks. The checks with the knight, surprisingly, they don't lead anywhere. So if black gives this check, I just move the king, and white will win. If black gives this check, I can just move the king, and the attack leads to nowhere. But we need to consider all the checks. This is important. So the knight checks are the obvious ones. But then there is this move, queen g3, fantastic move. And after you take the queen, now knight f1 comes with a checkmate. White king just cannot go anywhere. And if you don't take the queen, well, it will be checkmate on g2. Really fantastic move. Always try to achieve your goals by means of checks, because against the checks, your opponent cannot react. So look at this move. Queen c6, fantastic move. Sacrificing the queen. Black needs to take because we already said the king cannot go anywhere. And now the rook comes to a8 with a check. And black needs to protect. And voila, it's a checkmate. So really, really, really important. Let's go to another example. Okay, this position I really, really like. Also, I think it's a fascinating position. Um, in this position, if we think fast, we can easily make a mistake with white, because we can say, okay, forcing moves. I sacrifice my rook, which is a check, so why not? Especially because I am looking for a tactical motif, which is this diagonal. There is king and there is the queen. So this is a tactical motif. When your opponent has the queen and the king aligned in the same diagonal, it's something that you should pay attention to it. So I can sacrifice my rook, and once he takes, I pin his queen. Oh my god, this is so easy. Okay, but as you can see in the arrow, now we have a problem. And the problem is that our queen is overloaded, because our queen has to protect the bishop and also has to protect a checkmate square. So our queen cannot do both things at the same time. So black has the brilliant move, rook g1 check, we have to take, and now our bishop, it's just unprotected. So black will take it, and black will say, thank you for the piece, because now black has an extra knight. So a very important tactical trick that we should learn is to change the order. So we see the move rook h6 followed by bishop c3. Didn't work. So then we see the move bishop c3 first, and now black has nothing else than taking the bishop, because if black moves the queen, just mate. The bishop is pinned. So this is just a mate. So black needs to take the bishop, and now we sacrifice the rook. We change the move order. Black needs to take, and we take black's queen, absolutely crushing and winning the game. Okay, so this is a subject that I will speak much more on the future. And I really think we still need a lot of practice. I actually brought like 35 positions for today, but I feel the video it will get too long, and I'm really trying to explain all the positions in detail. But let me know in the comments if you would like a video like this in the future, another video like this where I am showing tactical positions and solving them. And remember, when you practice your tactics, try to look for tactical motifs Like, try to explain why there could be a combination. I think in the future, in the near future, I will make a more detailed video about tactical motifs, and always try to look for checks, for captures, and for threats in that specific order. First, the checks, always first the checks. Second, the captures. And third, the threats. And when you solve puzzles, if you are identifying the reasons why there is a combination, you will be able to find much more combinations in your games. This is something that I realized by myself. When I was a kid, I was really struggling with this, and after applying this method, it really changed the way I saw chess for the rest of my life. So I recommend you also, and it means a lot to me, if you subscribe to the channel and you leave your like, because we are already reaching the 1000 subscribers, and I really promise you that I will bring you more videos of this subject, and I will really go more into detail with the tactical motifs, with the forcing moves, and I will give you more tips and tricks. So I really hope that you like this video, and I see you in the next one, okay? This is part of my course of Become a Chess Player, where I will be taking you from beginner to master. So if you want to watch this course from the beginning, I leave you the first video right here. No, not right here. I mean right here. And I really hope you take a look at that video, because I feel it's a great video and really big compliment for this video. So, okay, I stop. Okay, I stop. Goodbye.